New York Rangers Mock Draft. We are going to be doing an online draft simulation and making all 4 picks for the Rangers in this year's draft. Who will we target with the number 30 overall pick, and who could be a late round sleeper? All this and more on today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers.
You're Locked On the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1099 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. So I want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So very, very excited about today's episode. It's something that we do every year. It's kind of an annual tradition here on Locked On New York Rangers. Basically, we're going to use the interweb to do a mock draft, a draft simulation, call it whatever you want to call it. But we're going to be using FC Hockey's website to basically simulate this year's NHL draft. And what I'm going to do is basically play the role of Chris Drury, of Rangers GM, and try to make the best picks that I can possibly make. And of course, for anybody that needs a refresher, the Rangers this year in the draft, like I said, only 4 picks. They pick in the first round, the 4th round, the 5th round, and the 6th round. So we're going to make all those picks and do the best we can here and try to get as many good players as we can into the Ranger pipeline on the New York Rangers. And for those of you that are listening on audio, don't worry, I've got you covered. I'll talk you through everything. For those of you that are watching on video, what I'm going to do, if I can figure out how to do this on my laptop here, is I'm going to share my screen and bring up the draft board, the website that has the draft board, and we'll go ahead and click on that and click share, and there we go. And I'll go ahead and full screen that as well so that you guys can see what's going on here. But again, if you're on audio, don't worry, I will talk you through it. If you're on video, right now you're seeing we've got a start draft screen here. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And then what's going to happen is, like I said, I'm going to play the role of the Rangers, and this website will simulate the entire first 29 picks. It'll just go ahead and roll through it very quickly here. And then once we get to number 30, I'm going to see who's left and make my selection. And while we're waiting for that to happen, so I'm basically torn for this number 30 overall pick between 2 centers. One is Dean Letourneau, and we've talked about both these centers, by the way. But the first one is Dean Letourneau. He's the giant player, literally a giant prospect, 6'7". He's a center, and he's put up video game numbers at St. Andrews College. He's also committed to go to Boston College, a very raw player, but there's definitely some upside there as well. He tends to be one of the more polarizing players in this year's draft. The other center that I really like, and I probably like this one a little bit more, that's Cole Beaudoin. Not quite as big as Letourneau, but a big center in his own right, and a very physical player as well. A more well-rounded player, and frankly, a more safe player than Letourneau. And that being the case, I tend to lean toward him a little bit because we've seen the Rangers have some rough first-round picks, some guys that have just not panned out, some guys with attitude problems. I mean, you name it. There's been a lot of issues with the Rangers and their first-round picks over the years. So I am torn between the two. I mean, Letourneau with the size and the skill combination, that's very tempting. But Beaudoin, like I said, a little bit more of a well-rounded player, and probably would be my pick if he is available here, which I'm going to check in just a second. But honorable mention also 2 other players that I would consider here at number 30, 2 other guys that we talked about in some previous episodes, defenseman Charlie Ehrlich and Leo Salin-Wallenius. And I don't think any of those guys are going to be available in round 4 when we make our next pick for the Rangers, but I will check that after we do that. So let's go ahead for the time being. I want to see if my guy, Cole Beaudoin, is here, and he indeed is. One thing I've noticed for sure is that FC Hockey is not quite as high on Beaudoin as a lot of other draft publications are. As you guys can see on YouTube, and again, for those of you on audio, I'll talk you through this. Beaudoin is ranked number 58 by FC Hockey, but the general consensus seems to be just going by scouting reports and all these different publications that Beaudoin should be expected to be taken late in the first round or early to mid second round, maybe even a couple of dissenters like FC Hockey here that have him going late second round. But I'm definitely a fan of Beaudoin. Like I said, I think he just has an excellent all-around game. He's 18 years old. plays for Barrie of the OHL and is an alternate captain there. Like I said, not quite as big as Latorno, the other center that we're considering here, but he's a very big kid in his own right, 6'2", 209 pounds. And this past season with Barrie, 28 goals, 34 assists for a total of 62 points in 67 games, another 2 goals and 3 assists in 6 playoff games. And that was a big, big jump offensively for Beaudoin from last season to this season. The season before this one, he had just 20 points in 63 games. And then this year, 62 points in 67 games. And as a result of that, he does seem to be climbing some draft boards. So I'm very happy that he's available to us here at number 30. For what it's worth, I've referenced this a couple of times in the past, but we did a Locked On NHL mock draft among all the hosts, all the different Locked On NHL hosts. And for what it's worth, Beaudoin in our mock draft went number 22 overall to the Nashville Predators. So obviously they like him quite a bit as well. But for this mock draft, Beaudoin is still available. So he's going to be my pick here. We'll make it official in just a second. But as far as, reasons why I like him, why he's a good fit and just a good player and a good bet to go on to have a strong NHL career, he is said to have excellent vision and is a very good passer as well. He's also relentless on the forecheck and just relentless in his pursuit of the puck. We saw how effective a strong forecheck can be when the Rangers played the Panthers. I mean, they were relentless, and the Rangers obviously had their hands full there. It was really a problem for pretty much the entire series, or at least the vast majority of it. But as for our pick here, Beaudoin, also very good special teams player. He plays in the power play. He's effective there. Said to be a very, very good penalty killer as well. We know how important that can be. It's difficult to separate him from the puck if he doesn't want to give the puck up. Willing to block shots, has a very high compete level, has a strong shot, very responsible defensively. Again, just a very, very well-rounded center. I mean, you look at all the scouting reports and everybody seems to have, a laundry list of things that they like about him. So this is one of those guys that, again, there aren't really any weaknesses in his game. If I had to pinpoint one or two of them, and again, I'm not a scout. This is just me going by what the professional scouts have been saying about him. But the consensus seems to be that his weakness, if there is one, is skating and speed. Although even there is a consensus that Beaudoin has worked on his skating and it has improved. It's still not what you would call a strength, but it's gotten a little bit better. And good to know that, Beaudoin himself saw this weakness in his game, apparently, or even just unconsciously got better in that area. So that's obviously good to see. And like I said, well-rounded player. There's 15 different scouting publications that I have in front of me on his player page. Some of them have him ranked as high as number 29, and there's one that has him ranked as low as number 52. So that goes back to what I was saying about, him being somewhat polarizing. And as for FC Hockey, they're not on his player page here, but apparently, at least going by their draft board here, they have him ranked at number 58. But I think that's way too low for Beaudoin. Everything I've seen about him is positive, and there seems to be a lot of belief that this guy will have a really solid NHL career. It's a little bit on the safe side for me, for the number 30 overall pick, but I'm fine with that, man. The amount of times the Rangers have swung and missed in the first round and just had a complete bust, it's happened too often. So if there is somebody that is a little bit of a floor draft pick as opposed to a ceiling draft pick, I'm okay going in that direction. And I don't want to shortchange Beaudoin here and, say that, he doesn't have any ceiling at all. I think he does have, a pretty solid ceiling, but definitely a little bit on the safe side as well. But I'll read a couple of scouting reports and then I'll make my pick and we'll turn our attention to the rest of this draft here. This one comes to us from Elite Prospects in their 2024 NHL Draft Guide. Beaudoin eats up the boards, grinds them, spins off opponents, drags the puck out of traffic, and gets it to the middle of the ice. There's not a battle that he can't win, even when at a numbers disadvantage, and he drives the net, creating chaos there, tipping shots, and getting open for tap-ins. His impact is felt in all three zones. When opponents try to escape with the puck, all they hear are his heavy boots slamming the ice to catch up to them. He crushes them on the boards, comes back around to lift their stick, and gets possession back. So again, that is just the picture of a well-rounded player and somebody that does a little bit of everything to help your team win. I'll do one more here. This one comes to us from The Athletic. An incredible athlete in the gym. He already looks like a pro physically. Beaudoin is a very well-rounded player who supports pucks well on both sides of the puck, protects pucks well against defenders, and can be relied on defensively and offensively. So again, just painting the picture of a very solid, very well-rounded player, and somebody that is probably ahead of schedule physically. You know, the fact that he is just 18 and getting scouts saying that, he looks like he could be a pro player right now. That's very, very impressive. And with all that said, I wanted to spend a good amount of time here on our first pick. It's very important to get your first round pick correct. It's even more important when you don't have a second rounder or a third rounder. But we can go ahead and make this official here. I will draft Cole Beaudoin with the number 30 overall pick. And this draft simulator is going to do its thing. It's going to go through, it just finished round 1. It's going to go through round 2. It'll go through round 3. And then we'll see what's left and what direction we want to go with the Rangers' 4th round draft pick. We will do all that in just a second. But while this draft simulator is doing its simulating thing here, we will go ahead and let you guys know in just a second about today's sponsor. And like I said, we will do that in just a second. All right, today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or the event. Save even more when you choose a section and let Gametime choose the seats. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, we just want to go ahead and thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And for the everydayers, you guys are definitely going to want to stick around. If the Rangers have any breaking news, new contract for Lindgren, new contract for Schneider, anything happening with Jacob Trouba, we'll talk about the draft. Obviously, free agency is right around the corner. We're going to be covering that from every angle as well. So definitely stick around. It's going to be a fun-filled couple of days here on Locked On New York Rangers. But for the time being, let's go ahead and shift our attention back to the draft here. Now, I mentioned a second ago that I was torn between Beaudoin and Letourneau with the Rangers' first-round pick. I also mentioned that Beaudoin is ranked a little bit lower by FC Hockey, which is the website that I'm using here. He's ranked a little bit lower there than on a lot of other, draft publications, whatever it might be. But nevertheless, I still took Beaudoin in the first round. That is also true of Dean Letourneau. He's the other center that I think the Rangers should take a look at number 30, but he's ranked much lower on FC Hockey than he is on basically any other publication that I've seen. So maybe we're cheating a bit. I don't think there's any chance this guy will be available in the 4th round in the real draft. But if he's available here, I'm going to take him. And of course, he is not available. Dean, yeah, he's gone. So let me see if I can figure out when he got drafted here. Let's see. Dean, Letourneau. Yeah, so it looks like, okay, so he was taken in the 4th round here at number 105 overall by the Seattle Kraken. So he wasn't too far away from falling to us here at number 127, but yeah, he's not going to be available for us to pick here. So we won't take Letourneau. The other thing that I have to do, and again, I feel like there's almost no chance that either of these guys will be available, but I have to look at the 2 defensemen that I was thinking the Rangers could take in the first round if they were available. And one of them is Charlie Elik. So let's go ahead and look at Elik. He is gone. The other one is Salen Wallenius. And it looks like he is gone as well. So those guys are all off the table. I figured they would be. With all that said, let's look at a couple of guys that I have earmarked at, possibly being available in the 4th round. And what I'm thinking here, coming into the draft, my opinion with the number 30 overall pick has not changed. I'm torn between either center or defenseman for the Rangers, and I've gone back and forth and leaning a little bit towards center because I really like the 2 centers that I already talked about in today's episode here. But to shift our attention now to the 4th round, what I would certainly like to do at this point in the draft is target a defenseman. We've talked about how the Rangers are a little bit thin there in the pipeline, and they really haven't taken a defenseman all that high. And because we don't have a 2nd or 3rd round pick, we're not going to be able to take a defenseman high either. But really in recent seasons, the only 2 defensemen the Rangers have taken, high in the draft are Braden Schneider and Drew Fortescue. Schneider was a first rounder. Fortescue, I believe last year, was a third rounder. If you want to go back a little bit farther, you could throw Keandre Miller in there too. He was a first rounder, but he's been around for a while, so I tend not to include him when I talk about that. But bottom line, we are into the fourth round here. We do have the number 127 overall pick. And I'm going to look for a defenseman. And there's a guy that I really like, and I'm hoping he's available. No guarantees, but we're going to go ahead and search him on the draft board here. Oh, he's there, Nate Miskey. So I'm really happy about this. They have him ranked apparently at number 211. FC Hockey and me are not lining up as far as how we feel about certain players. But Nate Miskey is somebody that I like quite a bit, has a good all-around game. He's 19 years old, 6'3", 198 pounds, 44 games with the Victoria Royals. 7 goals, 27 assists, so 34 points in 44 games. He's a plus 11. His offensive numbers were way up from the year prior when he had 14 points in 65 games. And he also went from last year, a minus 19, to this year, a plus 11. We know that plus minus is not the end all be all. It's not obviously foolproof, but when you jump 30 points from one year to the next, I do think that's pretty impressive. And just a physical player, very, very physical defenseman. I know there's obviously some Ranger fans out there that want to see them get tougher, nastier, whatever it might be. And this guy definitely fits the bill. So this comes to us once again from the Elite Prospects 2024 NHL Draft Guide. This is what they have to say about Miskey. There are physical defenders, and then there are players like Miskey. Enter his space, expect to pay the price. A strong defensive game supports all that physicality. Miskey steadily angles attacks before looking for contact, times poke checks just as opponents expose the puck, and forces attacks to turn into ones along the boards. And then we have this quote. This is not a scouting report, but I was looking up some information on this player. And look, obviously, his head coach at the Victoria Royals is going to speak very highly of him. That would be Mr. Dan Price. But nevertheless, I thought this was interesting here. Nate is a tenacious and skilled defenseman. He is a strong presence who brings both reliable defensive and exciting offensive upside, as well as exceptional work ethic in every area of the game. His balance of intelligence, athleticism, size, strength, grit, and high character, combined with an impressive touch on the puck, allow him to excel in every situation. And like I said, you give me a kind of a do-it-all defenseman, a bit of a two-way defenseman, and I'm on board with potentially, going with him as late as the fourth round here in the NHL draft. And I do want to go ahead and actually bring up his player page. I was not expecting him to be available here, but with all that said, I'm very happy that he is available here for the New York Rangers. They do need to add, I would say, certainly at least one defenseman at some point in this draft. And as far as like his numbers go, he was an alternate captain for Victoria, like I said, and 34 points in 44 games this past season. And as far as like these publications, I mean, McKean's Hockey has him ranked at number 83. Daily Faceoff has him ranked at number 103, and Elite Prospects has him ranked at number 90. So per all three of those publications, we're getting an absolute steal here. Like I said, FC Hockey and me, I'm grateful for this tool, this mock draft tool that they've made available, and anybody can go on and use it. And I highly encourage you guys to do the same. It's a lot of fun to do it. They're not seeing eye to eye with me, though, in some of these prospects. So, again, I'm very happy that Miskey's here. I think we're getting a steal in the fourth round. And as I mentioned, Elite Prospects, McKean's Hockey, and Daily Faceoff would all agree. All three of them had him going, fairly significantly earlier than this fourth round at number 127 overall. So we'll go ahead and make that draft pick official. Click the draft button, and there we go. Nate Miskey, you are a New York Ranger. So we're going to keep everything rolling in just a second. We've got 2 more draft picks to go. The Rangers pick in the 5th round. They also pick in the 6th round. And I might have to adjust on the fly here because there might be some other players that I like that I didn't think would be available that will be. So we're going to dive into that in just a second here. I am going to go ahead and first, though, let you guys know about our second sponsor of the day. And we will do that right now. All right, so we are back here on Locked On New York Rangers, and as you guys can see, the ones that are watching on YouTube, the NHL Mock Simulation Drafter, whatever you want to call it, it has now caught up, and we are back on the board in the 5th round here with the number 159 overall pick for the New York Rangers. And at this point in the draft, you're kind of just looking for, maybe it's somebody that has really good size. The Rangers have had a lot of success there. I mean, Adam Edstrom was off to a good start last season. Obviously, Matt Rempe has his followers and certainly made an impact for the Rangers. And both those guys were taken in the 6th round. So if you can find somebody that maybe he's a little rough around the edges, but has a lot of size, I'm certainly open to a pick like that. I'm also at this point in the draft not necessarily looking for this position or that position. I'm just looking for some size, some scoring upside, whatever it might be, something to like about a certain player this late where you can believe that, maybe this guy is a steal and maybe some teams have been sleeping on him and maybe things can work out. I'm going to go ahead. There's a couple other defensemen. I want to see if they're available. I'm not 100% sure that I'm going to go with either one of them, but one of them is William McIsaac, and he is indeed there, so that is an option for us. Another one is Terrence Smith, and he is not there. So we cannot draft Smith. I will go ahead and take him off of my own board here. And McIsaac is certainly a possibility. Very strong, big defenseman, 6'3", 192 pounds. We did just take a defenseman, though, and I do want to go ahead and look forward to another couple of guys that I have earmarked, a couple of non-defensemen here. And one of them is Blake Montgomery. And this might be considered a little bit of a reach in the 5th round. I'm not really sure. I'm not even sure until I search his name if he's available or not. But this is somebody that I like quite a bit. Let's go ahead and see if he is still on the board. He is there. And yeah, he's somebody that I think we're probably going to be able to get him a little bit later in the draft. So with that being the case, I'm going to take our attention back to defensemen. And there's one more that I want to look at right now. It's Eric Jamieson. And okay, so I've got a decision to make here. I'm basically between either Eric Jamieson, the guy that I just searched here, or William McIsaac. And I'm going to just go over my notes again real quickly here and come to some kind of a decision on which one I'd like to pick. All right, so time to make a decision here. And I think I'm going to give the slight edge to Eric Jamieson. Just a big fan of his, and I'm going to give him the slight edge over William McIsaac. They're both defensemen, and we are actually now going to pick our second straight defenseman here on this Locked On New York Rangers mock draft. Of course, we took one in the 4th round. We now take one in the 5th round, and it's going to be Jamieson, 18 years old, 6'3", 203 pounds. Physicality is his calling card. He's got the size to play that kind of a game and just has developed a reputation as a very heavy hitter. He has played the last 3 seasons with the Everett Silvertips of the WHL. He was an alternate captain for them this past season, and this past season was certainly his best. Played 66 games, 10 goals, 22 assists, so 32 points in 66 games. That's up quite a bit from the previous season when he had 13 points in 65 games. So there seems to be also, in addition to the mean streak and the physicality, some offense to his game as well. And it's also worth pointing out another guy with a huge jump in plus minus. He was a plus 34 this past season, whereas he was a minus 13 the season before. And as I mentioned earlier, plus minus is not the end all be all. We know that, but a 51-point improvement from one season to the next, that has to be noticed for sure. For what it's worth, he also had a hat trick this past season, which is rare for a defenseman at any level, but got to see some highlights of that. And obviously a cool moment for Jamieson. And I'll leave you guys with a draft scouting report from Elite Prospects, their 2024 NHL Draft Guide. Jamieson is a shutdown defenseman with high physicality. He seeks out contact, big and small, and instantly punishes opponents who make the mistake of entering his space. When he's not launching opponents through the air, he's breaking up rushes with instant pressure, boxing out opponents around the net, and occasionally jumping into the play. So again, a do-it-all defenseman and a guy that, if nothing else, is going to play physical and is going to play with some edge. And I think Ranger fans, a lot of them will be very, very happy to get a player like that into the pipeline. We'll see if the Rangers target Jamieson. No way of knowing for sure. But for what it's worth, he is ranked number 153 by McKean's, and he is ranked number 84 by NHL Central Scouting among North American skaters. And we are picking at, what number are we here? We're 159. So right around where, at least where McKean's believes he's going to be drafted. We will go ahead and take Eric Jamieson here. So let me just go ahead and pull his name back up here. There's our guy, Eric Jamieson, and we will draft him at number 159 overall. And welcome to the New York Rangers once again. We're going to let this draft simulator do its thing. It's getting into the 6th round here, and before we know it, it'll be our turn again. And we got one more pick to make for the New York Rangers, and there's a couple guys I'm looking at. One that I mentioned a minute ago was Blake Montgomery. He is a 19-year-old left winger. There's also a goalie that I like quite a bit, and I always like the idea, whether it's real life or whether it's me on here doing a mock draft, I like the idea of the Rangers taking a goalie late in the draft. I mean, goalies can really surprise you. We've seen some late round picks go on to some great careers, and obviously that's certainly the case when it comes to the New York Rangers. They've turned mid to late round draft picks into, Hall of Famers or at least all-stars or all-star caliber goalies. Bottom line, the Rangers take pretty much any goalie and they make him into, somebody that does a great job in the NHL. And obviously Benoit Allaire has a big hand in that. So there's a goalie that I'm going to consider. But the first thing I want to do here is check to see if Blake Montgomery is still available. And for what it's worth, we're not going to take another defenseman here. We just took 2 in a row. So I'm looking at either a forward or a goalie at this point. But let's go ahead and check out Blake Montgomery. So he is still there. And for some reason, I don't know if this, website just hasn't been updated or not, but it ranked him by default as number 999. He's ranked quite a bit higher than that by some other publications. Elite Prospects has him at number 61 overall, and McKean's Hockey has him at number 133 overall. And this is where I'm leaning here. I think we're probably going to take Blake Montgomery, but I do just want to go through my draft board really quick here. And the one guy that I had to find out if he is still available, if nothing else, is Hendrickson, the goalie. He's still there as well, and they have him ranked at number 192 overall. But as much as I like the idea of taking a goalie and letting Benoit Allaire do his thing, and I realize, he is taking a step back with the Rangers and might not be as involved this year as he has been in the past, but I get the feeling he'll still, be able to make his mark on the Rangers. Bottom line, though, I just like this Blake Montgomery kid quite a bit. We're going to go ahead and pull him up here. 19 years old, left winger for the Lincoln Stars of the USHL. He will also be playing college hockey for Wisconsin in 2025-2026. So going to be a while before we see him in the NHL, if he ever even makes it that far, because there's certainly no guarantees. But big kid, 6'4", 181 pounds. The height is there, and you figure he'll add some muscle and be a heavier player by the time that he's playing pro hockey. Obviously, he's not there quite yet. But yeah, I mean, by all accounts, I wasn't sure that he would be available here, but again, FC Hockey doesn't seem as high on him as I am. But one thing that really got my attention, and it's important to keep in mind, by the time you get late into these drafts, the 5th round, the 6th round, the 7th round, there's only so much, available scouting reports on the internet. There's only so many videos of these guys playing hockey that exist. It's not like you've got an entire encyclopedia of information to comb through here. But one thing that got my attention on Montgomery was this scouting report from the Elite Prospects 2024 NHL Draft Guide. Blake Montgomery is a play-driving power winger with speed to burn, shooting skill, vision, and defensive ability. Montgomery's powerful crossover bursts, high pace, and creative handling enable him to get defenders moving in the wrong direction and instantly punish them. He cuts inside, powers behind them on his way to the net, and always goes out of his way to win body positioning. I feel like I just read a description of Pavel Buchnevich, and that's the guy that the Rangers have basically been trying to replace ever since, that ill-fated trade with the St. Louis Blues, and Buchnevich is no longer in the picture here, but man, I mean, you read a scouting report like that, and again, very important to keep in mind, it is just one scouting report, and information does become scarce the deeper you go into the NHL draft, but man, I mean, there's a lot of qualities there, everything from size to skill to being able to drive the play to shooting, good on defense, somebody that, obviously plays with a high motor as well. I mean, that's what I get out of that scouting report. And again, just one scouting report, but you look at what we just went over there and you consider the fact that we're now in the 6th round, there's a lot of qualities there to like. I think this kid, Blake Montgomery, is way too good to be available this late in the draft, but I'm glad he is because I'm going to go ahead and make him our selection in the 6th round here, the number 191 overall pick. Blake Montgomery, you are a New York Ranger. And at this point, the draft is just going to keep doing what it does here. The draft simulator, we're out of picks here, but it'll go through the rest of the picks here. And I'm going to give a couple of honorable mentions, a couple of players that I didn't get to talk about too much, but guys that I like potentially late in the draft here. Luke Misa, I believe is how you say it. Not a big player. He's a center, 5'10", 178 pounds, but just very, very fast, has a lot of skill, very creative with the puck, an excellent skater. So we'll give him an honorable mention. He's somebody that I think maybe the Rangers could look at late in the draft. Carl Sterner is another 18-year-old right winger, 6'3", 187 pounds. Somebody that seems to be a little bit polarizing among, people that rank players in the NHL draft, but he's obviously big and he's able to score as well. So just an intriguing combination of size and skill. And, I mentioned Cam Hendrickson a minute ago. He's the goalie that I was looking at potentially taking with the Rangers 6th-round pick. But I did want to talk about him at a little bit greater detail because, again, I love the idea of the Rangers taking a goalie late. You look at, Henrik Lundqvist, taken in the 7th round, Hall of Fame career. Igor Shesterkin, taken in the 4th round. Possibly on his way to a Hall of Fame career. If he keeps playing the way that he does for years to come, he will definitely get there. Then even guys like, Alex Georgiev, undrafted, becomes a good NHL goalie. Antti Ranta, now he was with the Blackhawks before the Rangers, but comes over to the Rangers, becomes a heck of a goalie. Dealt with injuries, obviously, but has had a very solid career in his own right. And Cam Talbot, somebody else that was undrafted and still kicking around the NHL, made his first All-Star team just a couple of years ago. So you look at undrafted goalies and late-round picks by the Rangers, and it seems to always work out in their favor. So for that reason, I'm giving a lengthy honorable shout-out here to Cam Hendrickson, not an official pick that we're going to make here. But with that said, I do like him overall. And at Chan Hansen High School, he was the captain there, which is impressive in its own right. 29 games, had a record of 23-6, and I realize it's high school, fine, but 23-6, goals against average of 1.01, and a save percentage of .951 to go along with 7 shutouts. And now that he's in the USHL with the Omaha Lancers, 7 games, a goals against average of 2.92, a save percentage of .924, and a 4-1 record with 1 shutout. Obviously a small sample size, but off to a solid start there as well. And he also won the Frank Brimzik Award, which is given annually to the best senior goalie in the state of Minnesota. So that's obviously a hockey hotbed and a big state as well. And if you're the best goalie among that entire bunch, very, very impressive for sure. Couple other goalies that I'll throw out there as honorable mentions, just going off their numbers. Theodore Munther and Sebastian Gatto. If either of them are available, I think they could be a fine pick for the Rangers as well. But I figure we can pretty much call it there for today. This is a ton of fun, as it always is. And we'll go ahead, for those of you watching on YouTube, and we'll get rid of the draft screen there and pretty much just call it a day. If you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that's @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to the Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.